Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. Today I want to take a look again at the whole class debacle in Battlefield 6, whether the classes should be locked, whether they should be open. Obviously this has been a subject that has completely split the community, it's been particularly controversial, and I have of course been of the camp that I would like to see the weapons locked to the various classes, as it has been in previous Battlefield titles, before Battlefield 2042 came along of course. However, since then, a lot of people have put out videos and various rhetoric online that really makes some interesting points in favour of having the classes actually completely open the way they currently are in Battlefield 6's testing over in Battlefield Labs. And so today, I thought that we could watch a video together by a guy called Eclipse FPS, and he makes really great Battlefield videos, by the way. Definitely go and check out his channel that is linked down below because he's a really great creator. But he is on the other side of the fence. He is pro-open classes, so to speak. And according to him, he's done some thorough testing in Battlefield 2042, which really negates a lot of what many players' problems are with the game, and one of the main critical points around having the classes completely open. As always, if you guys enjoy the content on the channel, don't forget to hit that sub button. Plenty more to come on Battlefield 6 as we go into the future towards the release of the game. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support. So this video is pretty lengthy, I've skipped a little bit along in it, but just to explain what he's doing here, one of the main points of critique around the class system being open is basically that one meta weapon will evolve, and then you can just use that weapon across all of the classes. Let's say it's the VHX, right, from Battlefield 2042. Definitely one of the best assault rifles in the game, and you may well believe that that is the most used weapon, therefore, in all of Battlefield 2042, because you can just use it on all of your classes, no matter which one you play. And so what he's done here is he's played a number of rounds, and then he has meticulously recorded how many times he died and to which weapons, and counted the number of deaths for each one in order to get some sort of an understanding or a picture of whether there are actually any meta guns in Battlefield 2042. And, well, I think you guys will find the results quite interesting.
When it comes to Conquest, I played one round, and the results were as follows. If we count up the totals here, this is 71 different players' weapons. And the highest, most used weapon on here is the Avances at 5 and the LCMG at 4. But if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that there's a lot of guns on this list. So really what it comes down to is right off the bat, I got a lot of the results that I was expecting. There's a huge variety of guns that people are using in this Conquest
Damn, that is actually pretty surprising.
Anything from LMGs to ARs, SMGs, sniper rifles, it's all here. And there's no clear meta choice. But this is only the first round, so fair enough. Let's take a look at Breakthrough. Now, I'll admit, I don't like Breakthrough very much. And in the round of Breakthrough that I played, it was pretty much a blowout. But I still got some pretty solid results, so I'll list them off here. Now, finishing off that, we end up with 66 players' different weapons. Which, by the way, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the amount of data we got from players. If you're wondering why it's been higher than the player count of both of the servers I've been in these two experiments, it's because people switch weapons mid-game. Now, finally, like I said, I decided to play a third match, and this was on Team Deathmatch. Team Deathmatch is generally not a super popular Battlefield game mode, because who the hell logs onto a combined arms shooter to play Team Deathmatch? I don't know. Well, I do know. People who suck at the game. People who not only suck at the game, but really like to just sit in one spot and wait for people to come to them. I hate Team Deathmatch. Have I mentioned that? Now, either way, the stats on Team Deathmatch were as follows.
So that's actually quite a diverse spread there as well, even though there's fewer players.
And so, of course, with all that data we can put together, we get the final list of the weapons that were used over the last 3 games. So, you can see the numbers on screen right now. You're looking at them. And, where's the through line? Guys, where is this meta? What is the meta gun that everyone's using that causes them to not use anything else? I mean, the most popular gun on here is the Scar, so are we gonna say that's the meta? Because I would argue it isn't. I mean, not to say that 2042 doesn't have a meta. There's definitely some best guns in the game. Looking at you, AC9 SMG. But the stats are right here, and only 2 people in any of these games were even running an AC9. And that's arguably the best gun in the whole game. So it's almost as if unlocking class weapons doesn't immediately lend itself to every single person in the game running the same gun. Not even close, I would argue.
Well, the thing you've got to remember about this as well, right, is that with weapons, people don't always just play the meta, because you're also using weapons. Well, first of all, there are new players in the game, and they maybe haven't even unlocked the guns, so they're using specific weapons to unlock things. A lot of people who've been playing a long time, like maybe myself right now, I've already tier 1'd all of the best weapons, all of the so-called meta weapons, right? So now I'm working my way down the list of lesser used weapons kind of in reverse order, and I think that's what a lot of players are doing right now. So just because people aren't using the meta weapons doesn't mean that they're not the meta. But then I guess, given that those facts, really, you could also say that if you had an open class system, that's what we'd also see in the new Battlefield game, a good spread of people using lots of different weapons because they want to unlock things for them.
There's a huge variety of weapons I just listed out. Are you seeing all these guns people are using? And it's not like they're all clone guns of each other either. They all have unique stats and different reasons to run each and every one of them. And if you're gonna argue with me on that, then that's gonna be a completely different video, because I can assure you the guns in 2042, at least the majority of them, are far from just direct replicas of each other. Something that can't quite be said from the poster child of the Battlefield community, Battlefield 4, the absolute king of clone guns. And for the record, I don't even have a problem with that. I'm actually a pretty big fan of clone weapons because it means that you can pick whatever you think looks the coolest. But trying to say that all of the weapons in 2042 are clones of each other is just flat out wrong. Either way, this then begs the question, why does everyone think this is going to happen? And I think that we can come to two hypotheses on this, at least that's what I did. The first is that this conclusion is simply being drawn based off of assumptions and feelings alone, completely ignoring any sort of stats. Factual information on this topic is relatively scarce. It's a lot of work to get this information, and so rather than actually going out and doing it, a lot of people simply make assumptions. And considering that 2042 is the black sheep of the franchise and a lot of people don't play it, they assume that there's some big meta going on, when in reality, if you logged onto the game, well, the results speak for themselves. There isn't. But I think the other hypothesis that is probably more accurate to why people are drawing this conclusion is that what you decide is the meta gun and what you decide is ruining the game is almost entirely based around what's killing you. And while we've done all of this testing in order to see all of the guns that these different people are using in each of these different games, the real question is, how many kills are the weapons getting? And so I lied. I said I did 3 tests. I actually did 4, and the 4th one was significantly longer than the other one. Because in this 4th game that I decided to play, I recorded every single kill that I could from the kill feed in order to get a better idea of how this stuff is panning out and why people are making these just radically wrong assumptions. Well, unsurprisingly, while running that test, the most kills in the entire lobby was performed by vehicles, at 70 kills respectively. Second place, also pretty unsurprising, was equipment and grenades. Now, when we get to 3rd place and downwards, that's when we start to talk about actual weapons. So the most kills in terms of the lobby I was playing was performed by the PBX-45 with 41 kills, and tied with the SWS-10, which also had 41 kills. Right below that was the BSVM with 40 kills, and I mean, come on, you get the idea. You can read the on-screen prompts right now if you're curious. Now, at the end of the day, regardless of the kills, in this game, there were 35 unique weapons being used, which I would say is more than respectable. I wouldn't say that that's a huge meta, but maybe some people looking at the stats would. Maybe they would say that the PBX is broken because it got 41 kills, or that the SWS-10 is overpowered because it's a sniper rifle and it also got 41 kills. But then again, they did get edged out by vehicles, and oh wait, I'm forgetting something. The real king of this Battlefield match wasn't vehicles, it wasn't the PBX-45, no, it was the shitty M1 Garand World War II gun. The M1 Garand just edged out vehicles with 71 combined kills between myself and one other idiot who also, I guess, was deciding to throw and use the M1 Garand that day. let me just go out on a limb and say there's not too many people out there that are going to try to make an argument that the M1 Garand is the meta best gun in the entire game. And yet, here it is.
For what it's worth, this gun is actually quite good, I think. Like, I haven't used it much since I've unlocked it, but it is actually a pretty good DMR, if you want to refer to it as that.
It has the most kills in the lobby. That's why it's the best, right? Well, not quite.
He is right, though.
And this was
There's not
the
that many
entire
people
point
using
of
it.
this experiment. And I'm really glad that that other random guy did exist just so we could beat the vehicle's score by a singular kill. Because the entire point of doing this experiment was to explain or attempt to explain to people that just because you're getting killed by something a lot does not mean that it's the best weapon, or it's the meta weapon, or everybody's using it. Because as you can clearly see by the data that I just gave you, there were tons of weapons being used in this game. And yet, if you were constantly getting killed by me with my M1 Garand, you might automatically assume that everyone's running the M1 Garand. The SWS-10 got a lot of kills. You might assume that everyone's running a sniper rifle, and yet in reality, the game I played, there was probably only 3 or 4 people actually running the SWS-10. They were just good shots, and they were getting a lot of kills. Same goes for the PBX-45. I don't think that's a particularly fantastic gun, but it got...
Well, wait a second now. The PBX is actually the fastest TTK SMG in the game. Last time I checked, it was, so unless it's received some massive nerf, like, I remember everybody running that on Stadium. It literally, if you look at the stats, it has the fastest TTK. So meta-wise, it is actually kind of the best. It's just not the fastest firing, right? Let's just quickly go back here and take a look at the list of weapons. So let's just take a look at this, right? We've got the PBX up there, which is definitely one of the best weapons in the game. Then we've got the SWS, again, one of the best sniper rifles. The BSVM, absolutely broken weapon there, you know, with the semi-auto mode and then also the full auto mode, incredibly versatile. Pistols, well, that doesn't really tell us anything. The Avances, awesome weapon. Then we've got the DFR Strife. Definitely not one of the worst weapons in the game, but not one of the best. So maybe that's a little bit of an odd position for it. The AC9, another great SMG there. Then we've got the SFAR. And then after that, I would say all of this stuff is kind of meh. I'm surprised to see the AK-5C so low. The AK-5C, I would definitely say, is one of the best weapons in the game. The K30 is very good. The PP29 is exceptional. Only 10 kills with that, so that's a surprise there. And then we've got some LMGs. The LCMG is also pretty nice. They're probably one of, if not the best LMG in the game. That's only got 5 kills. ACWR there is decent. In fact, where is the VHX? Is there no VHX here? Which is incredibly surprising, to be honest with you. Maybe I am just blind, but I do not see the VHX. So I guess in a point, he has a point, right? Like, there is a good smattering of weapons here. I can definitely see some of the best weapons at the top, so I think there is somewhat of a meta represented here. But nevertheless, I don't think it's so much so that it's a problem, right? There are a good smattering of weapons and a good representation.
But the one thing that I want all of you to understand is that if they do go ahead and class lock weapons, we are in for a significantly worse game based on how the game has been portrayed to us through the leaks we've seen so far. Basically, everyone who's up to date with everything that's going on knows that Battlefield 6 is once again bringing back the Assault class as a specifically and exclusively selfish class. This is a design decision that I really don't like, and I really hope they change, but I don't really see them doing it based on what they've been saying. Now, that said, what you have to understand is if we get class-locked guns, where do you think that assault rifles, the most popular weapon category on Battlefield, as I've shown you here, are going to go? They're going to the assault class. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, going to cause a huge portion of the player base to be playing the most selfish and unhelpful class in the entire game solely so that they can get access to one specific category of weapons.
So I've looked at a lot of leaks from Battlefield 6, and I know what he's saying here, but I don't completely agree. He's saying that the assault class in the game is very selfish, and it is in a way, because basically they get access to grenade launchers, they don't have anything to actually help their team, and they get a stim to heal themselves. But they're not as powerful as they were in Battlefield 4, which I think the main problem came from with the Assault class, where in that game they had the defibs to revive, and they also had the heals. So what I think I would like to see DICE actually do is give the ammo to the Assault class, so they actually had some sort of a team role. I think this has been an ongoing problem in Battlefield games, that the Assault class is a one-man army, and they don't really play with the squad or the team in any way. However, the main thing that's broken with the Assault class at the moment is not the fact that they have access to assault rifles, it's the fact that they can carry two of them with this weapon sling system where you equip a secondary primary as one of your gadgets, instead of taking one of the what appear to be rather lackluster gadgets that you have in the game at the moment, like an underbarrel smoke launcher. I mean, which are you going to choose? A second primary or some underbarrel smoke? Or like an HE grenade or something like that? Of course you're going to choose the primary, so I would say that is definitely the overarching bigger problem here. I don't really think it's the fact that they have the assault rifles, especially not if all the other classes get carbines, for example, which are very close to the assault rifles. And even if they don't, it looks like the LMGs in that game and a lot of the PDWs are extremely competent weapons. I don't think they're necessarily going to be worse than the assault rifles, but, you know, I could be wrong.
And I want you to ask yourself, is that a good idea? Especially when you consider all of the data I've brought to you today, proving that, well, a lot of the complaints just aren't real. So we're gonna be chasing ghosts, attacking phantoms of issues that don't exist, all to potentially result in a whole bunch of people picking a class that hurts the entire team simply by picking it. That's really bad. So I suppose I can sign off on this video now, but all I ask of you is that you rethink your standpoint on this, because if you're one of these diehards, I would love to hear any other arguments you may have in the comments. I'm sure I'll have time to respond to plenty of them, but I think most of the arguments get squashed by a very small amount of scrutiny. It looks to me like a lot of people are just going, herder, it's always been this way, so it always will be, and not actually looking at how things will actually turn out, or how bad this could be for the game as a whole. Weapon variety and being able to have a lot of choice is an important part of games. And locking a whole bunch of people out of using their favorite guns simply because it's always been that way is not a good way to go about game design. Either way, that's it from me. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, there's a lot to go through here, a lot to unpack. So just to come in on his point there about people using the assault class and that being a selfish way to play the game, I feel like that's a different issue. If the assault class is too selfish, if it's too overpowered, if it has too many gadgets, etc., etc., that is a class balance problem that DICE needs to address. That is nothing to do with them having an open weapon system. The whole problem with the open weapon system is simply that people are picking a specific class in order to gain access to those weapons, but if the class overall is overpowered because it also has the best gadgets in the game, Battlefield 4, I'm looking at you, then that's just a balancing problem that DICE need to fix there. Now, he asked for some more opinions on this, and, like, I get his point here, and I think he does make a good point, that the meta overall isn't going to matter all that much. A lot of people have said, you know, if you've got 4 classes, they've all got different weapons that you have to use, at the very least, instead of having one meta weapon that will be used across the entire game, you're going to get 4 meta weapons, right? You're going to have the best assault rifle, and then let's say the best LMG for the engineer class, and the best PDW for the medic, or whatever it ends up being like. And he's clearly shown here that the meta isn't nearly as strong as people think it is. I've also seen a lot of other people talking about the fact that the majority, including myself, have been asking for the Battlefield 4 system where you have a certain class of weapons to each class, but then you also have some open classes of weapons like the DMRs and the carbines and the shotguns. And so many people have pointed out that that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't fix the problem, because then potentially anybody could just run a carbine, and some of the carbines in Battlefield 4 were incredibly good weapons. And that's absolutely true. But I have to say, I still preferred that system than the 2042 system where we have everything just completely open. And I'm going to give you guys a few good reasons to think about this, but they're not really so gameplay related. I feel like if we just look at gameplay, there is a strong argument, like this guy here and other people have made, to have all of the weapons open. But this is more than just gameplay, right? There are more important things, in my opinion, that need to be considered here. So first of all, and somebody posted to me on Twitter about this, consider how much seasonal content we're going to get for the game. Battlefield 2042 came out, and do you know how many weapons were in the game? Something like 21 or 22. I can't remember the exact number, but it was barely anything. There was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 snipers, maybe 2 or 3 LMGs. Can you imagine if the LMGs would have been locked to the medic or the support class, and all you had to go out for that class was 2 or 3 weapons? That would have been terrible, right? So they literally could not lock the weapons to the classes because of that. And you know what that allowed them to do? It allowed them to release only 2 weapons every season. Now, if you have weapon categories locked to classes, that means that every season you're going to have to make sure that Mr. Assault Rifle player and Mrs. Recon player, for example, they both have new weapons, right? Maybe somebody plays Recon, they don't play Assault, they need a new sniper rifle to use. If they get a new season and they don't have a new weapon that they can use, they're going to be pretty damn disappointed. So this is a very easy way for DICE and EA to make exactly the same amount of content that they have been in Battlefield 2042, which clearly was not enough. Now, another really big reason, and this is the crux of it for me, right? This is what I care about as a Battlefield player. It's not really the gameplay. In terms of gameplay, I don't think it's going to affect me that much either way, and it really doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't particularly care what class system we end up with, whether it's a hybrid system like Battlefield 4, or it's a Battlefield 1 strict weapon system where each class felt very unique, although I probably would prefer that system, or whether it's a completely open system like we have in Battlefield 2042. I think in most situations, when it comes to readability and stuff like that, you're not going to find me saying like, oh, if I'd have known like what weapon that guy had, I wouldn't have died. 99% of gunfights, you're just going to see somebody, you're going to shoot them and they're going to die. Or they're going to shoot you and you're going to die. You're not really going to be fretting too much about what kind of weapon they had there. But in terms of the game's identity, there are several things, in my opinion, that have sort of defined Battlefield throughout the years, which I think are absolutely critical that it needs to hold on to stop this sort of homogenization of shooters where we see them all trying to copy one another. And at the moment, these are some of the things that really sets Battlefield apart from other shooters like Call of Duty. One of those things is the vehicles, right? Another is the sandbox type moments that we get from these large maps with lots of players. But I would argue that one of the biggest things that sets Battlefield apart and really is intrinsic to its identity is the class system. Those are some of the basic foundational building blocks upon which the Battlefield legacy stands. And need I remind any of you that that has been needlessly tarnished in the past couple of iterations of the game by DICE and EA, exactly by doing this sort of stuff, trying to sort of reinvent the wheel and not listening to what their community actually want. Now, those classes, what their roles are, the weapons they can use, the gadgets they carry, those things have changed with the various incarnations of the franchise, right? From game to game, it's never exactly the same. And that's kind of part of the interesting magic of every Battlefield game to me. I don't know which weapons are going to be available to what class, but as soon as we open up all the weapons to all the classes, that's going to be it then. That will be the way it will be in the future for all Battlefield games henceforth. And to me, the weapon that the classes have is often more of an identifier than the gadgets, right? If I think about playing as the Recon, the first thing I think about is not C4, it's not a Tugs, it's not a spawn beacon. I think about a sniper holding a sniper rifle in a ghillie suit. That is what the Recon class, that is what the sniper class, whatever you want to call it, that's what it embodies for me. And if all of a sudden it doesn't have to use a sniper rifle and it's just running around with anything else, then it's lost some of that core identity. Same thing with the assault class. I see him running around with an assault rifle. Maybe some of the other classes have been a little bit more wishy-washy with what they have. You know, sometimes the LMGs have gone to the support, sometimes they've gone to the medic, the PDWs have just kind of gone anywhere really. But in Battlefield 2042, when I play that game, I will often just have the same PDW or whatever weapon I'm trying to tier 1 equipped, and then I will just switch classes but keep that same weapon all the time. And you know what, sometimes I don't even remember that I've switched class. Some of you guys who watch me stream will have seen this. I will actually be playing as Falk, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a Nightbird in the sky. I need to get Liz to get a Lissile to take it out. I'll switch to Liz, but then I forget. I hit 3 on the keyboard to try and pull up my heals, only to pull out my Lissile launcher and shoot myself in the face with it. It's kind of funny on stream, and you might laugh at me and say, oh, you know, Ghost, you're a boomer or something. But that's because I'm using the same weapon across all 4 of these classes, so much so that I can no longer really identify which class I'm playing unless I take a mental note and I'm like, oh, right, yeah, I'm playing this different class now. If all of a sudden you're running around with a sniper rifle, like, you know for sure if it's locked to the recon class, now I'm playing recon. There's no two ways about it. You're going to be completely aware of it. As soon as you give every class every weapon, they lose part of that identity that is intrinsic to the class system. All the mystery and the intrigue with each new game, that goes away because you already know the answer. Every class can use every gun. One of the arguments that he made in this video was that the Battlefield community was scared of any sort of change, and that's not a good way to approach gameplay. You can't be afraid of doing new innovative things that might improve the franchise overall just because the community are scared and worried about it. However, let's just consider for a second that in recent years, DICE and EA have been making missteps that have watered down the franchise almost beyond recognition. And now that they've finally seemingly done a U-turn to, you know, cling back onto their roots that were almost extinguished forever, they decide to go and make an extremely radical change like this. To me, the class system choice here that they're going for, it doesn't seem in keeping with their new back to roots approach. It's clear that the majority of the player base don't really care for it, and like we've already discussed, if it's not actually going to affect the gameplay massively either way, then why bother rocking the boat? And let's not forget, the way the community is reacting at the moment and kind of going like mental about this is all DICE's fault. What DICE have taught us, and EA have taught us, is that whenever they try something new, whenever they change the formula, it's going to fail catastrophically. That's been our experiences. And if those are your experiences, then that's what you expect in the future. So naturally, anytime the community sees something like this and they catch a whiff of DICE experimenting again, they're going to react negatively. They're not going to be open to it. You know, if they would have released Battlefield 2042 and it would have been an amazing game, and this open class system with these heroes was just, they really knocked it out of the park and the gameplay was fantastic, guess what? In the new game now, people would be a lot more open to experimentation. But that's just not what happened. Time after time, DICE and EA have failed trying to reinvent the wheel. So does it surprise me that the community don't want them to keep trying to do that? Of course it doesn't. Now, on the one hand, you know, I kind of feel for the developers. I'm sure they don't want to keep on making the exact same Battlefield game again and again and again. They want to innovate. They want to try new things. But it really is my gut feeling that they are trying to do this for some, I don't want to say like nefarious purpose, but part of me starts thinking about things like them wanting to sell skins in the next game. I do think that's a factor. I also think it's a factor that we're going to be getting a battle royale. And as you guys know, in most battle royales, you kind of have to have 2 primary weapons. Maybe that's why we've got the weapon sling system in there for the assault class. Maybe it's just engineering-wise and gameplay design-wise, it's easier for them to have this open weapon system. But without a shadow of a doubt, the main reason that I'm just still against this is I can already see the negative reviews on day one on Steam. You've got to remember, DICE and EA, whilst yes, the Battlefield Labs leaks, the Battlefield 6 leaks, are looking quite promising and the game is showing some potential, they are on extremely thin ice. They've just managed to claw back, or begin to claw back, I should say, some of the large community. All of those swathes of people who left when Battlefield 2042 came out and said, I don't want any part of this anymore, they are now starting to turn their heads and slowly look back towards the Battlefield franchise again. And it's absolutely integral that this time around, DICE and EA capture those people and bring them back and welcome them back with open arms. Don't just be looking at new people that you want to bring in from the extraction shooter crowd and the battle royale crowd. You need to also think about the older people who have stuck with you through years, maybe even decades. And all it takes is one small mistake like this, one thing to sour the pot, and those people won't want any part in it. And I can promise you, Steam will be absolutely covered in negative reviews if there's any of this sort of stuff in the game. They just need to play it safe. I understand some people want innovation, they want new stuff. I'm sure DICE would love nothing more than be able to experiment and innovate on the game, but I really just think for this specific title, they've got to play it safe, man. If they manage to get those community members back, then maybe in the next game, sure, they can start to experiment around a little bit and start testing the waters with this kind of thing, but I don't believe personally that now is the time to be doing that. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on there. I'm not going to go on for any longer because I'm aware this has become a far longer video than I ever imagined, but leave me yours down below. You know, just as a summary here, again, gameplay-wise, it doesn't really matter that much to me, and for those of you who have issues and worries about classes being locked and the gameplay not being good due to balance reasons such as the assault rifles being too good, DICE just has to balance that shit, man. They got to figure it out. They got to buff the LMGs. They got to buff the PDWs. Like, whatever class system they go with, whatever weapon locked or unlocked they go with, they have to see to the balance of the game. And I really feel like a lot of the issues raised by people who are, let's say, pro-open weapons are just balance issues when it really comes down to it. So leave me those thoughts below, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to go and check out Eclipse's channel. Subscribe to me as well while you're at it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.